Most people think that building professional software requires a massive team, 6-month roadmap, and a mountain of Jira tickets. They think you have to choose either moving fast and shipping garbage, or you move slow and ship quality. But here's what I've learned after building 17 internal tools for my own companies in the last 2 years. That's completely backwards. I'm going to show you a process that allows a solo builder to ship enterprise-grade internal tools in a matter of days, not months. This is the exact same process that multi-million pound product teams at companies like Stripe and Notion use. It's just compressed for the AI era. And the crazy part? The faster you move, the better the software gets. In this video, I'm breaking down the 5-step product thinking framework that I use to go from a customer conversation to a live working tool in under a week, while traditional development shops are still scheduling their kickoff meeting. If you want to learn this framework yourself, check out Step Labs in the description. We teach builders this exact process. Or if you're a founder who needs this built for them, then go to foundana.com. Links are in the description. So here's the thing about building software with AI. The secret isn't about finding the latest and greatest tool. The secret is product thinking, and that means sticking to the fundamentals. Most people jump straight into building. They open up Lovable or a similar app and they just start making stuff. This is fine to learn, but without a plan, no structure, pure vibes, then 3 weeks later, they have a Frankenstein app that looks cool but doesn't really solve any problems. Here's what changes everything. Before a single line of code is written, you start with the why. You map the existing broken process. You identify the one specific bottleneck that's costing time or money. You don't guess, you observe. And when you nail this part, when you get crystal clear on the problem, the rest becomes so easy. Let's get into it. Step 1, conduct customer interviews. Now, when I say customer interviews, I'm not talking about some formal user research study with 50 participants and a surveying tool. I'm talking about sitting down with one person, even if that customer is just your internal operations manager, and asking them to walk you through their process. Show me how you onboard a new client, for example. Walk me through what happens when a support ticket comes in. What do you do when you need to generate this report? These types of questions. And then shut up. Just watch. You don't suggest solutions. You don't say, what if we built this or that? You just observe where they're fighting the system. I was working with a colleague once and they kept demanding, we need a better contract tracking system. So I said, show me how you track contracts right now. And then he opened up 4 different tabs. Notion for tasks, Google Sheets for the budget, Slack for updates, Gmail for the communication with the client. Every time he needed to update a contract status, he had to manually copy and paste information between these different tools. It took him about 15 minutes per contract. He had 30 active contracts, so that's about 7.5 hours a week, just copying and pasting. That's the real problem. Not we need a better tracker. It's we're losing 7.5 hours a week to manual data transfer. Once you see the problem clearly, the solution becomes far more obvious. Step 2, wireframe the solution. This is where most people get screwed up. They get super excited and jump straight into building. Don't do that. We don't build straight away, we draw. I use Canva sometimes, but most of the time, I just grab a piece of paper and a pen. It really doesn't matter. The tool isn't the point here. The point here is to make sure that the logic and the setup works on paper before you ever touch a database. You map out the screens, you sketch the flow, you ask, if the user clicks here, what happens? What data do they need to see? What actions can they take? And here's the key. You share this with the person you interviewed. Ask them for feedback. Hey, is this what you meant? Does this solve the problem? If they say, yeah, it does, but I also need to see X, well, then you update the drawing. It takes 2 minutes. If you'd already built it, that's potentially a massive refactoring exercise. This is how you can avoid building the wrong thing. And AI can read hand-drawn designs now too. So once you've got it resolved, you can feed these sketches straight into Lovable and it'll build it from there. But it does need the validation first. By doing this properly, you'll avoid the feature creep trap. Let me tell you about a time I almost fell into this trap. It was A number of years ago, I was working on a trading system that helped users model price direction. I did customer interviews, and during those conversations, a customer started getting super excited. He was brainstorming out loud, and I was writing everything down, nodding along, trying to make sure we captured every single feature. And I started sketching out this massive system in my head. Database tables, AI models, slick interfaces. The wireframing was turning into a massive Swiss Army knife. In fact, I wasn't even really doing the wireframing at this point. I was already starting to build, mentally. It did everything that a trading team would need. And I was so excited, just started development. But progress was super slow, and it's because the product in my head was bloated. Finally, I realized that I was overthinking it and had to stop myself. I asked, what's the one core bottleneck that's making the day job tough right now? So I went back to him and asked him this. Asked him, what's your real pain today? He paused and said, honestly, I just need a supply and demand balance. But it was taking up too long to consolidate. That was it. That was the one bottleneck. Not the models, not the fancy automated interface, a simple calculator, basically. At this point, I'd already invested a huge amount of time and energy into building out the ultimate solution, but it could have gotten worse. And that's the power of product thinking. You strip away the noise and solve the real problem first. And you want to do this up front before you start building. But yes, eventually we get to building. Step 3 is building the front end first. Once the wireframe is mocked up, and once the customer agrees, yes, this is exactly what we need, then you build. But here's the trick. Start with the front end. I use Lovable for this. I take my wireframe, I describe what I want, and within, a matter of hours, I have a high fidelity interface that looks and feels real. You can click around it, but there's no back end yet, no data. It's just the UI. And this is critical because it gives you a second chance to align before you invest time in the complex stuff. Again, I can show the client. Here's what it's going to look like. Here's how you'll navigate through it. Here's where the data will appear. And if they say, oh, actually, I thought that button would be over here, I can move it in 30 seconds. If I built the entire back end and all of the system, okay, button moving is maybe not a good example because that's still pretty simple. You get the point. If they point out that something is wrong or needs editing, you haven't built out all of the back-end structure. You go front-end first, align on that, and then you invest in the back-end infrastructure. Step 4, architecting the back-end. Now that the front-end is locked in, we are building the engine underneath. This is where Supabase and tools like Na10 can come in. Supabase handles the database, where we store all the client data, progress tracking, whatever we need in that regard. And Na10 can handle more custom logic and specific automations that are AI enabled, for example, the triggers and the workflows. Because here's the beautiful thing. Because we did the work in the product thinking phase, the build is just connecting the dots. We're not figuring it out while we build. We're not sitting there going, I wonder how this should work. We already know. We mapped it in the previous steps and we validated it with the user. We built the UI. Now we're just executing the plan. And this is why we can build these systems so fast. We're not improvising, we're implementing. Hey, quick thing, if you think this framework is working for you, hit that subscribe button and you'll hear more like this. I break down these product thinking type frameworks and AI development systems every single week. Drop me a comment too. If you've got any questions or things that you'd like to see me feature, then I'll make sure to read every comment and reply if need be. All right, let's keep cracking. Let me tell you about the fastest turnaround I've ever done using this exact process. It was a Friday afternoon. I was talking to my partner about how painful her day had been, classic kind of Friday afternoon vibes. And she'd spent the last 3 hours trying to build out what seemed to be a very simple scrolling banner for her client. Scrolling banners are those text things that move on an email or on a website. They just slide from left to right. She showed me the process of going into Canva and copying an image over and over again to make tiny adjustments that eventually got turned into a GIF. It had to be done this way because the software tools available make the files way, way too big, and it needed to be below a certain size. We decided to build some custom software instead. At a normal dev shop, they'd say, okay, let's schedule a discovery call for next week and we'll have a proposal in a couple of weeks. But I had this 5-step process in mind. On Friday afternoon, I did the interview, which was basically just spending an hour walking through the entire process. We identified the bottleneck, which was copying and pasting over and over again. It was horribly manual. Then Friday evening, I'd wireframed it, a single-page mock-up of all the input fields that would be needed, including text, speed, icons, color, sizing, etc. I showed her the sketch. She said, "Perfect. This is exactly what I need, but make sure you include custom fonts." So with the updated change, I could get going on Saturday morning. I built the front end in Lovable. Took me 2 hours. It had a fully interactive interface. Gave her a link to test. And by Saturday lunch, I'd built the back end. Set up all the functionality to go from idea to download. Saturday afternoon, did a final quality check and nice little polish. Tested the edge cases. Added a couple of nice to haves. And then pushed it live to a newly registered domain. She started using it immediately, no training needed, it was that intuitive, and she's been using it ever since. It's probably saved her and her team hundreds and hundreds of hours by now, literally. That's the power of this compressed process. Anyway, back to the process. Step 5, launch and iterate. Here's the thing about launching in the modern stack. It's not scary. In traditional software development, launching is this huge, terrifying event because it took 6 months to get there. You have one shot. If it doesn't work, you've wasted half a year. In our process, launching is super exciting because it only took a few days. If something isn't perfect, you iterate. You listen to the team, you watch how they use it, you tweak the front end, you update the logic, you ship again. This is the feedback loop. And for the scrolling banner application, after the first week, the team said, it would be great if we could save our favorite designs for later. Cool. Okay. That's literally added in 1 hour. Shipped in an afternoon. This is how you build software that a business actually uses, adopts, and then relies on. They see that changes can come through quickly. You aren't just coding, you're solving. And you're solving in real time based on actual usage, not theory. Look, here's the fundamental shift. Most people think that speed and quality are opposites, that you have to sacrifice one for the other. That's only true if you're building without a plan. When you follow this 5-step framework, interview, wireframe, front-end, back-end, launch, speed actually improves the quality because you're getting feedback at every stage. You're validating before you invest, and you're aligning before you build. You're not guessing and hoping, you're observing and executing. And that's why a solo builder using this process can outship a 10-person development team using traditional methods. It's not about working harder, it's about thinking before you build and getting it right first time. Or if it's not right, iterating. It's quick. You've done it in a matter of days. So if you're a builder who wants to master this 5-step framework, the exact one I use for my agency clients at Foundana, just come join us at Stack Labs. I'll show you how to move from thinking about an idea to shipping a product using this exact discipline. We cover the entire process, how to conduct interviews that cover the real problem, how to wireframe effectively, how to build with Lovable and Supabase, how to launch and iterate fast. This isn't theory, this is the playbook. I've done it so many times, and you can too. Link is in the description. Or if that sounds all too hard and you're a founder who just has a business problem and needs a custom solution, then reach out to me at foundana.com. We'll use this compressed process to build the tools that will scale your business today, not next year. Stop dreaming about software and start shipping it. Get in touch. Now, if you want to know the full set of tools that I use to build out software using this exact framework, then you're going to want to watch the next video. See you there.